Hello and welcome back to Burning Questions. My name is Mbali, and today I have an amazing guest, John Endres, who is the CEO of the Institute of Race Relations. John, thank you so much for joining me on this episode of Burning Questions.
Super. Thank you so much, Mbali, for having me. And I'm the incoming CEO. We still have
Yes,
another one as well, the outgoing CEO. We
yeah.
are a very fortunate organization having two CEOs.
We're very lucky, I must say. So, guys, okay, let us get right into what today's question is. So, today's question is a three-part question. So, the first part is, what exactly is the BEE? How does the BEE system work? And has the BEE been successful? John, I think you can take it away. Let's start with what exactly is BEE.
Okay, so BEE stands for Black Economic Empowerment. And
Mm-hmm,
it is a system introduced by the ANC government sort of from about 1998 or so.
mm-hmm,
And the idea behind the system was that the racial discrimination that was applied in South Africa during the time of apartheid produced very different outcomes, as you would expect, for the
mm-hmm,
white population group compared to the other population groups, which in South Africa were Black, Colored, and Indian.
mm-hmm,
And what the ANC wanted to do was to uh, create a situation where these population groups had more equal outcomes and to undo the discrimination of the past. That was the
mm-hmm.
intention of the system.
Okay.
And effectively, what it was an attempt to make right what had gone wrong before.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And then the second part, has the system that you just explained right now, has the system worked?
No, it has not
Or
worked,
rather,
unfortunately.
let me phrase
Yes.
it, let me go back to the second part of the question. How does the
Mhm.
system work? How does the BEE system work? I think let's start there.
Mm. Okay, so the system is quite complex and a little bit
Mm-hmm.
convoluted. So
Okay.
it is more than just a question of saying, you need to employ a certain number of Black people or colored people or Indian people or white
Mm-hmm.
people in any organization, even though
Mm-hmm.
that does play a role in the system. But let me just quickly go through maybe what the seven elements of BE are. There's
Mm-hmm.
an ownership element. So you, as a company, you can get points awarded to you for having a certain level
Yes.
of Black ownership.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's a management control component. That means that control of the company must be exercised to a certain extent by
Mm-hmm.
Black managers. There's an
Mm-hmm.
employment equity component that says that you should racially transform your company and you should try to approach the ideal of representativity.
Mm-hmm.
There's also a skills development component, a preferential procurement component, an enterprise development component, and a socioeconomic development component. And
Mm-hmm.
I had to look these seven pillars up because I'm not really a BE expert and I haven't
Mm-hmm.
memorized them. But you
Yeah.
can imagine that for investors, especially if they are not familiar with the South African environment, if they are foreign investors, for example, navigating your way through this is quite difficult and quite complex.
Mm.
The
Yeah.
way it works is that there's a maximum number of points available for each of these components. You
Mm-hmm.
get rated on how close you come to achieving the ideal. You get a number of points, and that gives you a scorecard. And then
Mm-hmm.
based on the number of points you get assigned a BEE level. And the higher your level is, the
Mm-hmm.
more favorably you are regarded by the government. And for example, if you want to sell products to the government will ask you for your BEE certificate. It will say, what is your level? And you will
Mm.
say, my level is 1, or it is 4, or it is 7, or whatever the case might be. The
Yeah.
government looks at the various companies bidding to offer services, and then it gives a weighting effectively. And it says, if you've got a very high BE level, we will
Mm.
give you preferential status, and you will have a better chance of getting contracts. You'll be able to charge a bit more, etc., etc.
Mm-hmm.
And the effect of this is that companies then start competing to get these BE points. That is the idea,
Mm-hmm.
thereby fulfilling the government's desire to empower the Black, colored, and Indian parts of the population and to create a greater degree of equality with the white part of the population.
Mm.
What is also quite clever about the system is that the procurement component means if I buy from you and you have a high
Mm-hmm.
BEE level, then
Mm-hmm.
I get points for that. And that means that these
Ah,
BEE
okay.
points sort of move through the entire supply chain
Mm-hmm.
and every single company in that supply chain that buys from one and sells to the next, and buys from one and sells to the next, will be keen and eager to find somebody with a high BEE level. And so it's a kind of self-enforcing system.
Yeah.
And that really is the concept. I hope I managed to explain that. It is a bit complicated.
No, not even. I think you put it in simple terms for people like me who actually didn't understand how the BEE system works. And then I think the last part, which you kind of already answered, which is, has the BEE been successful? And I think maybe I'll throw in the kind of last question to say, should the BEE be scrapped, or do you think we can work around it, or we can better the system of the BEE?
Well, it is, I think BEE is one of the holy cows of our society and our government. And it
Mm-hmm.
is viewed in a very bad light to criticize it
Yes. Yes.
or to call for it to be replaced. And
Mm-hmm.
doing so, takes a bit of courage, I think, and a
Mm-hmm.
willingness to face some criticism. But we
Mm-hmm.
have made that call, and we do make that call. And the reason we do so is because we say that after 20 years of the system, the
Mm.
evidence is now clear, and we've got the results. We can
Yeah.
now say what the effect of the system is, and the effect is very, very bad.
Yeah.
And in making that assessment, what we look at is we look at sort of the educational outcomes for the country, we look at the economic outcomes, we look at unemployment. And what we see is that there's a small group of people who have
Mm-hmm.
benefited from BEE. So we've created some very wealthy black billionaires, like
Yeah.
the president and his family, and some others.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but also sort of a quite substantial middle class. And
Mm-hmm.
so often, if you criticize BEE, you'll receive some responses from people in the media or in corporates who will say, look, I'm a beneficiary of BEE. How can you criticize it? This has worked very
Yeah.
well. Without BEE, I wouldn't be where I am.
Yeah.
And then you say, yes, well, you probably would be where you are because you're good. You've got
Exactly.
education,
Yeah.
you've got connections,
Mm.
you've got resources that you can leverage. You're
Mm-hmm.
already in a pretty good position in our society.
Yeah.
You'll probably be okay.
Yeah.
But apart from those 15% of people who are doing well out of BEE, there's
Mm-hmm.
85% of the people who are not doing well.
Yeah.
And these people are the ones who are being failed by BEE. So instead of
Mm-hmm.
being, a broad-based system that really uplifts the entire population and promotes social mobility and progress and helps people to create a better life for themselves, for 85% of the people, this is not happening. They're
Mm.
getting stuck in a welfare system, in a situation of joblessness, of poor prospects for their future, and
Mm-hmm.
that is really a very damaging effect of BEE. You
Yeah.
also see the effects of BEE, say in the public service, where appointments were made on basis of race because you say,
Yes. Yes.
you want racial representativity, so
Mm-hmm.
each population group must be represented in each organization
Yeah.
in the
And you
same
find that the
proportion as it
person
is.
doesn't even
Yeah,
qualify. Sorry, John. You find that they don't even
yeah.
qualify for that position. But because they're black or Indian or colored, they end up getting it. But yeah, you can carry on.
And there's an aspect to that, which is when you say what you've just said and what I'm saying as well, people will say,
Mm-hmm.
oh, you just don't think blacks can do the job. When
Yes.
you say that you got appointed
Mm-hmm.
because of BEE. And that is
Mm-hmm.
a terrible and damning criticism to make, because obviously, the fact that BEE exists opens up the possibility of making this claim and counterclaim.
Mm.
And if BEE didn't exist and people were appointed based on their skills and qualifications, then you wouldn't be able to point at a person, and be suspicious about them and say,
Mm-hmm.
look, I can see that you're the spokesperson for so-and-so and you're black. You
Yeah.
only got the job because you're black, which is a really offensive and insulting thing to say.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
BEE muddies the water. It affects, I
Mm-hmm.
think, your self-esteem, the way you're perceived by society, by those around you, which is not a good thing. And another important aspect is that where BEE has been the most stringently applied in terms of racial representativities, the public service and the SOEs.
Mm-hmm.
And public services are collapsing across the board. The municipalities are a disaster.
Yeah.
The provincial departments are in bad shape. The national departments are in terrible shape. The SOEs are making losses that need bailouts.
Yeah.
We've got
Yeah.
load shedding. We've got water problems, the
Yeah.
roads, etc., etc., etc.
Mm-hmm.
Now, wealthy people like many whites, for example, can escape the failing public sector by buying services from the private sector. So
Yeah.
if your public school isn't working, it's okay.
It's
You
all
can go to a
right.
private school. Yes.
Yeah.
If your
Yeah.
public hospital isn't working, it's okay. You can go to a private hospital. If your police isn't working, it's okay. You go to the private security service. But if you're poor, you don't have that option.
Yeah.
So if you're those
Yeah.
85% of people who are dependent on public hospitals, public schools, the police, public services in general, you really have a problem because you are impacted by the underperformance of these organizations and institutions, and you've got no way of escaping. And that is really the deep injustice of BEE. And
Yeah.
for that reason, we really are calling for it to be scrapped, as unpopular as that call might be. But we say that the effect of this population of this policy has been really, really devastating. The evidence is in, we can see the proof in the streets around us every single day, and we need to do something about this.
Yeah, we definitely do. We definitely do. John, thank you so much for taking your time to help me answer this question. And I hope you, the viewer, this question was answered. And you will send through your questions also on Instagram, Facebook, and on Twitter. Do remember this show is every Wednesday at 6 o'clock, also on Facebook, YouTube, and on Instagram. Yes, almost forgot Instagram. But anyway, guys, thank you so much. We'll catch you guys next Wednesday. John, thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mbali, and I hope to see you again soon.